Good morning! Good morning, guys! Today, how to make more sales. So we've had our heads down in 3 other strategies until today. The importance of creating a relationship, having a relationship strategy, having a product strategy, having a customer strategy, all those things we have to rise into the top 20%. Today we begin the how-to for how to present your case. We're going to talk a lot about the bottom 20%, the bottom 80% and the top 20%. Because we know that the top 20% of salespeople make 80% of the commissions. And the other 80% fight over the 20% of the commissions that are remaining. So how you approach can determine whether you get an appointment. So the risk you take is not having a successful approach. If you don't have an approach, you can't get an appointment. If you can't get an appointment, you can't make a presentation, you cannot make a sale. This is the part that the bottom 80% skip over. But when you do it, when you approach successfully, you're going to feel like you are in control. You're going to set more meetings and you're going to make more sales. And when you make more sales, Mr. Upton,
more money.
You make more money. You get into the top 20%. Let's begin today with what we call the pre-approach. Now the pre-approach is what successful salespeople do the night before your presentations the next day. The bottom 80%ers are out drinking beer, having fun, and they wake up in the morning, oh man, oh, I shouldn't have had that last one. Man, my head's not clear. Okay, I got 30 minutes to make my first appointment, no problem. And they walk in and they wing it. And the buyer feels it when they're winging it, and the buyer says, let me think about it. And that means no. So let's talk about how to perform a successful pre-approach. We call this encounter planning. And we're going to start first. The night before, you have to do your research. You have to look inside your CRM. You must look at all your social media sites, identify the profile of the customer, who the customer is, where they went to school, all the demographics. Same thing about the company, know as much as you can. Second, then you need to create a value proposition which frankly can be standardized. It is the statement that conveys what your company can do that will matter the most to your prospect. So the value proposition is a benefit statement that contains a metric. What's a metric? An example of a metric. A millimeter is a measurement of a metric. A metric might be increasing their sales, reducing their costs, improving performance. Whatever that metric is, when you talk about a metric that matters to them, they're going to lean in. Second, which direction will that metric move once they buy your recommendation? Will your sales increase? Will your costs decrease? And third, the magnitude. By how much? So your opening statement might be, I represent ABC Construction Company. We build buildings for our clients 10% quicker than our competition without sacrificing quality. Now, if you've done your research and a low-cost operation is something that you think your client is interested in, you've entered a value statement, a benefit statement to him. That's your value proposition. So you're going to construct your value prop the night before. You're going to know that that's how you're going to start your presentation. Next, you need to write down the critical questions that you're going to be prepared to ask. You're going to look at the company you're calling on, the industry that they're in, and your ability to ask the provocative question that causes the buyer to do this. Don't you dare break the silence. They'll say, that's a good question. That's why you're there. After you've developed your questions, then you calculate what an advance is. Now, an advance is something that the client does, an action that he or she takes, or the energy that they use versus a continuance. What's a continuance? This is what the bottom 80% fall into. You say, so how was your meeting this morning? Oh, it's great. It was fabulous. What went on? Oh, I made such a good relationship with them, and they're doing this and this and this, and I know we're going to be able to help them in the future. Advance? No. Continuance. Continuances just fry sales managers. So you've got to figure out what is the maximum advance that you can get and the minimum you will accept. And that's your target. You're going to land someplace in the middle of those. Why is it so important to calculate these advances? Mr. Lawson.
Does it give you an idea of where you'll fall within the set?
Where you're going to focus, right?
Yeah, where you will focus.
So once you identify that, you're not going to ask about something over here. You're not going to talk about something that's not relevant. You're going to focus your questions on securing that advance. And an advance is something that causes someone to spend energy or take an action. After then you've written down what your advances are, then you're going to ask yourself, what unexpected value am I going to contribute that's a result of the questions that I'm asking? So if you know that you can supply these needs for the person, but they really don't understand that they have that need. That's the question you ask, causes a person to say, you're earning a living when you're asking those questions. So what unexpected value can you get them to admit? What need do they have that would supply an enormous amount of value to them? When you're doing that, you're going down the pike. You're going from identifying needs and then enabling you to figure out what product or service are you going to recommend that will fulfill that need. Once you have your questions identified, the value you think you can provide, then you create the agenda. Now you know what you're going to do. Different from this client to this one to this one. That may take you, for 4 meetings the next day, that may take you 4 hours the night before. So, you finish at 5 o'clock, you go over to the Cracker Barrel. Why do you eat at the Cracker Barrel? No alcohol. Not tempted? You go over there, get a good meal, go back to your hotel room. You're now pumped up, got plenty of energy. You spend 4 hours getting ready for your calls the next day. Why do you do that, Ms. Childress? Because I want to be the best salesperson in this firm. That's the pre-approach. Now let's begin to talk about the approach. Now that you've got the appointment, you've done your pre-approach, you're ready for your meetings. So I'm going to back up a little bit because we haven't talked about how to secure an appointment. I just made the assumption that you have the appointment, so let's go there. You're going to use the telephone in lots of circumstances to be able to secure an appointment. Multiple steps on how to do it. First, when you smile on the phone, they hear it. So you put a little mirror in front of you, and it says smile on the mirror. Every time you pick up the phone, right before you talk, you smile into it. Yeah, I like you. Got it. You're smiling. Unless when the person answers the phone and he says, Bob Smith, you say, good morning, Bob Smith. He says, who's this? Whoop. No hi. I bring that I right back down. You got to match the tone. You got to listen carefully. Remember, as we listen, we're listening for sociability first. Hello? Hello? I and yes, we can hear that. And second, how much assertiveness? Bob Smith. Bob Smith. D, C. Match the tone. After we smile.
Yep. I mean, all right. So if you were to call somebody and their D was high, you want to be a dick factor?
No, it's not. D does not stand for dick.
No, I know.
It stands for dominance.
But do you want? I mean,
match the tone.
Do you want to come back real firm, or do you want to like come back a little, not as firm, but just a little bit above?
Did I tell you the story about Colonel Fox?
No.
Colonel Fox, I was cold calling for Jones. Didn't I tell you the story?
No.
It's the answer to your question. So I'm knocking on doors with Jones. This burly guy comes to the door and says, what do you got? I go through my blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, he said, I already got a stockbroker in Indianapolis. And so I asked him a question. He said, do you know anything about real estate investment trusts? I said, yes, sir. So he said, I got this problem. And he went into this massive amount of detail about real estate investment trusts. I'm listening. So I got the crazy idea. It was crazy. I shouldn't have done it. It was before cell phones, before I just had a tape recorder in my pocket. And I used to use the tape recorder between houses to record what I learned about a person so I didn't have to write it down. So I pulled out my tape recorder and I clicked it on and I said, find out for Colonel Fox. He says, who's on a tape recorder? I didn't know disc back then. So I said, yes, sir. He said, son, erase that tape. I don't want my name on anything attached to you or your firm. Good day. He turned around. Took 2 steps and I said, just a minute, Colonel Fox. He turned around and I said, you asked me a very detailed question and I was going to make sure I got it word for word so I can get it answered for you. He said, son, come on in. See? So you got, when you got D's, you got a D talk. It's short, blunt, to the point. They are the easiest to sell if you handle them well.
Who's the hardest to sell?
C's. S's are next. I's are next. Oh, I's are easy to sell, but then they'll cancel. Oh, I can't do it. My mom says it's not a good deal. I shouldn't do it. You know, oh, well, I can't. Lots of excuses. But when you give the benefit to the D, the D goes, I'll buy it. Once they say that, usually their word's their bond. Not always, but. All right, so now you got to introduce yourself. So here are a couple suggestions. When you call someone you don't know, and they answer the phone and they say, Bob Smith, Ajax Manufacturing, you say their full name back. Hello, Bob Smith. Why? Well, what happens is people love their name, right?
Yeah.
How many times when you call someone do they say your full name back? I do it. Because it becomes your brand. You call next time, Bob Smith. Hey, Derry, blah, blah, blah. So use it. Because you're trying to create a brand. Bob Smith, this is Chris Derry. Pause. They'll think, do I know you? Sometimes you can even say, don't rack your brain, we haven't met yet. Oh. Now you want to introduce yourself and your firm. I represent Ajax Manufacturing, and you're going to deliver the value prop in the next sentence. We help firms like yours reduce their heating costs by at least 15% over the next 12 months. We just bought a new heater. Thanks very much, sir. No need. So now you got you introduce your firm and the value statement. Now part of what you're doing here, you're going to have to script. That means you're going to have to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. How you say it, you're going to listen to yourself, but once you begin asking questions and they begin answering them, the scripting has to stop. Because you have to listen to what they say and then fashion a question based upon what they've just told you. If you're an I and S, it's easy because you do it all day long and twice on Sunday. If your S is low, this is really hard because you don't listen well. So the next statement that comes out of your mouth has to be the benefit statement. And it can be generic to people who are working with your firm, or it can be, the best is if it's specific to that person in that business. Why? Because then they'll feel it. Typically, you're going to ask for a meeting. You're going to ask for another phone call because you've interrupted them, and you're going to ask for an amount of time to spend. If you say, I just need an hour, you're not getting it. If you convey enough benefits that they're curious, and then you ask for a small amount of time. Don't ask for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, because everybody asks 5 or 10 minutes. Ask for 6. Ask for 11. Why? Because it's different. They'll say, why do you need 6 minutes? And you can say, because I talked to lots of folks like you on the telephone, and I've discovered that in about 6 minutes, a person can understand the value we bring. And then they'll know whether they want to continue the conversation. Oh, okay, 6 minutes is nothing. Set the appointment. Once you get an appointment, you are in charge of the calendar invitation. It is not sufficient that they write this calendar down well, it's not enough. You're going to get cancellations if you don't create a calendar invitation. How many do calendar invitations now? Electronic. Oh.
Like, what do you mean?
Calendar invitation says, you say to Siri, hey Siri, create a...
Set the alarm for when?
I hate when that happens.
Hey Siri, schedule a meeting with Bob Smith next Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Okay, I set up your meeting for Tuesday at 9 a.m. Shall I schedule it?
I'm going to say no,
All
because I
right,
don't want...
Chris, I'll leave it off.
Thank you. So, but when you set it, then it's set, you go over to it, and you go down in the calendar invitation, and you put their email address in, and when you do it, it will send an email to the person saying, in their time zone, what the schedule is. You can schedule it for 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes.
Does that work for people who don't use MacBooks as well? Because I know I guess I've never not had a MacBook. Does it work on or does the Microsoft have the calendar and everything
I'm a Mac
invitation like
guy.
that? Do what?
I'm a Mac guy. Mine's all Mac.
I know, but I'm saying if you.
Oh, does it work for Microsoft?
Yes, can you send the invitation through email like that, where they'll get the notification on the side of their computer like the MacBooks do?
I do not think it's centric for Mac or Microsoft. I use Gmail. And so when I hit the Gmail, it sends it out to everybody.
Okay.
I have not had a problem.
Okay.
Now, you have to ask, can I send you a calendar invitation? If they say, what's that? Then the answer is you can't send it. You have to do it on paper. If they say, yeah, that'd be great, then you're done. Because you know what happens, the day before it'll confirm it, and the other day before, we're going to talk about this in a couple minutes, is you have to confirm it too, right here. You got to confirm it. Now, calendar invitation helps. Now let's talk about the math for how it is you can set appointments. The math says you need to capture the number of dials you make. Then based upon the number of dials, the number of times you connect with a person, then the number of times you have a conversation with that person, and then the number of advances that you secured. So here's how it works. You got to play the math game in your head, because you can only cold call for about an hour. It's way too stressful. So for an hour, you set your dial, you say, okay, once you get the math in and you know how many dials it takes to connect, how many connects it takes to get a conversation, and how many conversations you have to get an advance, and you know the numbers, then here's how you handle the emotions. You know you have to dial it 10 times to get a connect. You got to have 2 connects to get a conversation. You got to have 3 conversations to get an advance.
The law of numbers.
Law of numbers. So you trick yourself. You say, okay, I've got a dial. Nobody answered. Oh, I'm closer. I got 3 dials. Oh my God, I'm getting close. I just need to get to 8. I dial another one. It's coming up. Got one. You got to play these games to keep yourself up. So this is how to reward yourself. You got a log in front of you. You keep this log on paper. I don't think you have to do it electronically. But this is how you can manage your emotions and keep cold calling. Last, why do you cold call? This is the magic. When you reach someone that has a need that he didn't understand he had, and you identify in that telephone conversation how much competition do you have to fulfill that need? 0. It's you. Full margin. That's why you cold call. Most people are scared, you know whatless to do it. And you know there's a system to do it. If I just work the system, I'm careful about my script, I'm careful about my advances, and I work that system 2 or 3 hours a day, and I get hold of I got 100 dials, I know I'm going to get 2 or 3 appointments in that day. Works like a charm. So that's how you use the telephone. Now, should you use email to prospect? The answer is, by itself, it's pretty weak. Why? Because emails are free. You can send them out of MailChimp. We're going to talk about MailChimp in a couple minutes. You can send out 1,000 emails, and you are the recipients. Your email box gets cluttered with all of these. I'm out of the office. Well, all of these proposals for you, the things you should want. Now, if you're going to use email, then be careful of this. Write the email message, put in a subject line that you think is the subject line, write the email, then go back, read the email, and look at the subject line. Is the subject line, does it contain a benefit that will cause the person to open up the email? If it doesn't, they won't. It'll fall flat. You can even test this. You can do an A/B test. You can send out 50 to one and 50 to the other and look at the response rate. Identify a subject line that causes people to open. Next, once you have this down, then you build a template. Now, if you're in a CRM system, the templates will be a part of the CRM. That means I want to send out this email to this person that has this need that's attached to this product. So the template says it's generic, and then in a CRM system, it'll pull out the email address, their first name, their last name, they'll customize it for you, it'll fit right into the email, so when it arrives with you, it feels like a personal email to you. That's what a template will do for you.
Oh,
I use these all the time. They save me a massive amount of time. And next, Sometimes you want to use something like MailChimp if you don't have a CRM system. MailChimp will allow you to send out 10,000 emails. Actually, they've never charged me. I've been using it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe. And as long as you don't send this many and you don't want these benefits, it's free. When you want specific benefits, then you have to become a subscriber. So email by itself is not sufficient. But when combined with voicemail, you get a 1-2 punch. So how does this work? So you got your dials. Dial comes up, hits voicemail. Maybe here you've got connects, you've got a voicemail right here. Because if you have a powerful message you can deposit into voicemail, you may have a shot at getting a call back. They're really low. So here's how you do it. In a voicemail, you've got to have this scripted out in front of you. So they say, Bob's not here, leave me a message, blah, blah, blah. You say again, Bob Smith. Pause. Who's this? This is Chris Derry from this company. We help companies benefit statement, the value prop. I'd like to talk to you for about 6 minutes. I'm going to follow this up with an email that explains what this is. I look forward to talking to you, period. That's the voicemail. And right after that, you rifle the email. As a matter of fact, you have the email ready to send when you make the call. You hang up the phone, you go click. Because if they're screening and they listen to it, they'll go click, click. Well, damn, there's that email. Huh. Building trust. Combination of voicemail and email can work better.
Do you put your phone number with that to call for a callback number?
Yes, always. Now you made your appointment. And you're going to have your first contact with a person. How do you do it? How do you make sure that you can maximize the benefit of this first call? 1, once again, you've got to do your research. 2, you've got to make sure in that social contact that you ask the questions that you intend. Now here's how not to do it. You don't ask question 1, listen for the answer, write it down, ask question 2. That's called 20 questions. And after the first 3, the person's going to think, what is this, 20 questions? Because what you want them to think about is, this is about me. So what you have to do is you have to stay connected. You ask this question, they give you this response. You pause. You think. You ask a question based upon what you heard. They give you another answer. You think. You ask another question. The best, now listen to me, the best salespeople simply ask one question after another question, after another question, after another question. And the closer you get to the benefit, the more the person's going to enjoy giving you the answer because they think that they're going to get something out of this. And just make sure you keep telling yourself, it's not about me. I'm not going to relate my stories in here, my experiences, because your prospect doesn't care. They can only care about themselves. Now, if they ask you, that's an advance, right? Because they're expending energy in asking you questions. That's the best of all possible worlds. So that is how to make sure you can make this social contact successfully. And to be successful here in building trust, you have to build rapport. So what does building rapport do? It causes the person to lean in emotionally and say to themselves, subconsciously, you know, I like this person. I like this. So how do you do it? 1, be careful with how you handle the business card. Japanese do it the best. When the person gives you the business, gives you their business card, take it in both hands, put it in your fingers, and read it. They're watching you, remember? Now ask a question about something that's on the card. How long have you been the chief financial officer? Has the company been located here on Melrose Street? How long has it been located? 17 years. Well, I remember blah, 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 blah. See, you're making a connection with them. It's very respectful for you to pay attention to the business card. Next, if you don't know, you ask, so where are you from? Smile. Well, I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. St. Paul, Minnesota? I've grown up in Bowling Green, Kentucky. How cold does it get there? Oh my God, it gets so cold. Now you're building, you know, it gets a little cold where we are, but it must be massively cold. So how many days, you know, so you're asking questions about their experience of being cold. Building rapport. Next. In 424, I make it possible for my students to get a subscription to the Wall Street Journal for 1 semester for 15 bucks. And we have a weekly blog in which they read the Wall Street Journal and they write about one article. Why? It's rhetorical right now. The answer is, the more you read, the deeper your knowledge base, the more you can involve the customer, the prospect, in a conversation. So last Friday, Kai Megers, who is a senior executive, he was with a firm called Arconic. He retired, and I brought him in for my Salesforce management class. He's brilliant. He's an engineer, and he's a high C, and boy, and he worked with salespeople at high levels, and we had a great conversation. Yesterday morning, I'm on my trainer, working out. So for 35 minutes in the morning, I read the Wall Street Journal when I work out. I do not allow myself to read the Wall Street Journal unless I'm working out. It's my own trick. So I'm up and away. I've got my iPad right there. So what you can do is, even when I'm working out, I can click, send this article to this person. Click, click, click. I do voice to text, blah, 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 blah. Even when I'm working out, Siri understands me, even though I'm huffing and puffing. And I send it to Kai. This morning, I get an email back, because it was about their latest earnings announcement, and they had a tough earnings quarter, and he just retired. So he said, oh yeah, it was because of this and this and that, and I learned more about Arconic, but what was more important? He said, thanks for thinking about me. That's why you read the Wall Street Journal. It broadens your knowledge base. Another thing you can do to build rapport is to watch carefully when you walk in someone's office. They're going to have pictures on the wall, they're going to have pictures of their kids, they're going to have a putter in the corner, they're going to have things, and when you walk in, you're looking at them. You're not thinking about what you are interested in, you're trying to figure out whether this person is interested in that and why he has that. And you're going to make some comment. That's a wooden putter. How long have you had that? Oh, it's not mine, it was my grandfather's. So your grandfather was a golfer? Oh man, he was the best, blah, 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 blah. So now you're learning about how his grandfather went to St. Andrews, and then your prospect went with the grandfather to play St. Andrews, and it was the best experience of his life. And when he's talking about that, and he's talking about himself, he looks at you and says, man, you're a great person. I know it sounds weird, but that's how it works. So observe the office. Now be careful. Don't fall into the trap. Some people will put a picture right in the middle of, say, a yacht. And so a salesperson comes in and says, hey, you like yachts, don't you? He said, yachts. I would never, ever own another one. I had that SOB and Charlie destroyed it. And it cost me a fortune and I'll never buy another one. Did it on purpose. It's a D. Having fun with you at your expense. So make sure, so don't go overboard, but just mention something, watch their reaction, and engage. It's all about building rapport. Last if you see them with a picture on the wall and they're introducing themselves. I've got an old picture of Jack Kemp. I know you don't know Jack Kemp. Jack played quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, went to the Super Bowl. He became a Republican congressman and a really good guy. And when my son was 6 months old, I have a picture of Jack Kemp and me shaking hands and Ben's in the middle. It's one of my prized pictures. So if I have that up, it would be perfect for you to say, now, do you know Jack Kemp? No, but if you do know Jack Kemp, you read the Wall Street Journal, you know the Buffalo Bills, your dad's told them about you, and you're broadly educated, then you can make huge points to get me to talk about the value of that photograph. So, mutual acquaintances. Those are 4 excellent techniques to help you build rapport. Now, you need transitions to transition between building trust, identifying needs, making the presentation, and closing. You just can't go click, click. You need to make it seamless. So how do you make the transition between building trust and identifying needs? You do it with an agenda. You created your agenda the night before. You have built trust. You have you identify mutual acquaintances. Person is leaning in, and you say, I've created an agenda for our use today. Now, you said to me that I'm going to have about 20 minutes. Is that still sufficient? Yes, that's still fine. And so what I want to do today is I want to accomplish these 3 things. I want to ask you some questions about this part of your business. And I'd like to do this, and I'd like to do that. And if things work well, then we'll create another meeting, or you'll give me some direction for the next call. The person goes, okay, you make all those agenda items be benefits to me, and also I'll say, yeah, that sounds great. That's to make the transition. Now you begin probing. Subject, need, idea, benefit. I introduced this in the chapter. We talked about it a couple times. This is the way for you to think about. After you've identified needs, you know they have needs that you can fulfill, and you need to transition between identifying the needs and the presentation. So you say, remember, needs come first. What needs does this person have that'll be fulfilled? You've got that down. Then you say to yourself, now what benefit is he going to get when that need's fulfilled? A little mind game, so you start. You take the number 1 benefit and you start it. So I've discovered today that you have this need and this need and this need. What I'd love to do is to show you how we can fulfill each of those needs. So the benefit to you of this is that you're going to get a product that's going to work in all kinds of environments that your workers can use, and it won't break down. I know you had this need. You told me that in these circumstances you had this need. So my recommendation is that you buy this product. When you buy this, you're going to get this benefit, this benefit, this benefit. Okay, prove it. That's what you do in your presentation. You simply connect the benefits of your product to the need that's fulfilled. You go, you have this need, this product does this, it'll deliver this benefit. Oh. And you ask, you have this need right here, this product does this, it'll deliver this benefit. Oh, really? And last, you said you needed this, especially at this time. Well, this product does this and that, and it'll satisfy this need this way. Oh. You say, well, would it make sense for us to deliver this on Monday? Yeah. I love it. You actually can do this? How much does it cost? Remember, you hold the cost all the way to the end. We're going to talk about that later. So you try to close without the cost. He's going to go, wait, sounds good. How much does this cost? Then you're going to handle the cost objection. Once you've done that, you're very close to closing the sale. So SNIB is the transition between needs identification and your presentation. What is call reluctance? Mr. Harshbarger?
We have no choice but to answer.
No choice but to answer?
No alternative.
It's the thoughts and fears that stop you from making the call. The fear of failure, fear of not being good enough.
Fear is simply an acronym that stands for a fantasized experience appearing real. You conjure it up. You look at that telephone and you'd swear that telephone weighs 1,000 pounds. You go to pick it up, or it's hot. Oh, no. I'm going to call Martha. No, she's not home at this time. I'll call Bob. Oh, no, Bob told me last time I didn't. I'll call this person. No, I can't. I better get a cup of coffee. That's all call reluctance. You're conjuring up these things that are not true. I took a call reluctance test early in my sales career, actually midway through, selling financial services, and I discovered that my call reluctance was in talking to people who were rich. They might think, well, that's silly, because the rich people are the ones that have all the money. They're the ones that could invest. Logical or illogical, I discovered it. I thought, that's horrible. I have to learn how to sell products to rich people. So I left that firm, not immediately, but I left that firm and I joined another firm where I would just call on rich people. Solved that, baby. It was just my own call reluctance. So if everyone's got some call reluctance, they could be, they're not going to be there. They won't be home. That you are not good enough, your product's not good enough, you can manufacture any number of bits of call reluctance. You got to bring it to the surface. So when you confront those fears, they will disappear. Fear. Rich people. Now, how to deal with a gatekeeper. Once you learn how to do this again, once you learn how to put all these steps together, sales is fun, because you know how to do it. Most salespeople simply don't know. And what you don't understand now, when you complete this course, is you will have more knowledge, more skill knowledge about how to sell than the vast majority of people who are selling today. Because none of us had any sales courses. We had to learn it on the street. We had to make all of these mistakes. So when you go into a sales organization, you're going to know a whole lot, but you don't realize it. So gatekeepers, how do you deal with a gatekeeper? Gatekeepers tend to be high S's. Look at the smile. The smile is warm. Hello, how are you? This is the beginningest in most companies. Clients come in, the first person that greets them is the S. Good afternoon. How are you? They're warm. They're not. What do you want? I see. Yeah? What do you want to see? It's the gatekeeper. What do we know about S's? They build relationships very slowly. They don't necessarily, they'll smile warmly, but the S is high. So that means they like routines. They do not respond well to pressure. You try to push through a gatekeeper S, you may get it the first time. The next time you come in, you are dead. So, the gatekeeper, you spend time. You say, Mr. Kroll, nice to meet you, Mr. Kroll. Your first name is?
RJ.
RJ. It says RJ Kroll, receptionist, right? So, again, first name, second name, RJ Kroll. Nice to meet you. I'm Chris Derry.
Nice to meet you, Chris Derry.
I'm with blah, blah, blah. And today, I'd like to know who I should call on in this firm about this and this. Could you help me?
Sure.
S's always say, well, sure, because they're helpful. Well, sure, but nobody asks them. Could you help me? Well, sure. Well, who would you suggest that I talk to? Well, you might talk to this person and that person. Okay. How do you think that I should contact him? What's the best way to do it? D's, you lower your D all the way down, and you have a 100% good eye contact with the person. Now, they build relationships slowly, so don't try to create a personal relationship. Don't go, hello, RJ, how are you? Boy, it's nice to see you. Hey, but no, it's not the I. Reduce the I, soften it. And then, when you leave, you get her card, make sure you have her name, her email address. So you go to handwritten.com. There's your handwritten app, right? And you pull down the thank you note that you send to receptionists. It's all standardized except for one sentence. And that one sentence relates to something you learned about RJ. And you say, thank you very much for helping me today. I appreciated that you did this. I look forward to seeing you again really soon. And in it, you put a $5 Starbucks card. Thank you very much. That's personal. She gets a personal note. It's hand addressed to her. She opens it up. What a nice thing to do. Oh, that RJ. Wow, what a nice guy. Now listen, S's never forget. If you come in next time, she'll say, RJ, that was sure a nice note. How did you know I like Starbucks? Because everybody likes Starbucks. It was easy. But, oh, of course, I really appreciate how you helped me. And what did you get at Starbucks? Well, I got this and that. Do you always get that? Yes, she always gets the same thing. So yes, and how long have you been going to Starbucks? So now you begin building rapport. So the second meeting goes fine. The third time you come in, you go, hey, Chris, good to see you. Say, just go on back. Bob's expecting you. Gatekeeper's mine. That's how to handle the gatekeeper.
Do you want to keep your relationship, not a relationship obviously, but how do you keep building that trust with the gatekeeper? Or you just at that point, once you get through, you just don't worry about it?
Every time you go in, lower your D, raise your S. Hello, RJ. How are things today? Been busy? Oh yeah, I've just been swamped. Really? Why is that? You have a conversation with her. Because that's what S's like to do. They want to, once the relationship starts, they want to build it and build it and build it. So just make it about her. When you finish, stop by her desk and say, thanks very much. Bob was busy today. Could you help me again? Well, sure. Well, who else in the firm? Oh, well, you need to talk to this person right here because she knows everybody. So leverage the gatekeeper. Don't you dare try to go, hey, I'm just going to call on Bob. She's the gatekeeper. Get to the door and it's locked. You don't know that she's got a little key underneath that she releases the door. Go back embarrassed. Oh, can I see Bob? He's not in today. Could I get his email address? Well, he just doesn't release that kind of information. What she's saying is, you're done. Leave. She would never say that, but you're not going to get any help. Got gatekeepers. All right. So today, our focus has been how to help you make more sales. We talked at length about the danger of not creating that good first impression. Multiple tips for how to create a good approach, how to make sure your first impression is positive. When you do this successfully, you're going to feel like you're in control. You know how to handle the gatekeeper, you know how to set appointments, you know how to create that first social contact. Second, you're going to make more meetings. You're going to have more appointments. When you have more appointments, you're going to make more sales. Okay, guys. So, any questions from team one? Questions?
What Super Bowl did Bills are over 4.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna do this one.
Oh, I may be wrong. I may be wrong that Jack King won the Super Bowl, but he was the quarterback, and for several years, they were an outstanding team.
Yeah, they went to 4 straight with Jim Kelly.
Well, look up Jack Kent's name, quarterback, and see what year.
Kemp, K-I-M-P.
K-E-M. Kemp, K-E-M-P. Jack Kent. So, team 1, ready to go on Friday? All right, guys. See you then. Mr. Nunley.